What is going on, everyone? My name is Anson. Today I'm going to show you all how to create a custom context menu in React. So what exactly is a context menu? Well, a context menu is pretty much just a user interface that appears whenever you perform some kind of interaction with the application that you're using. So let's say, for example, right now I'm on my desktop, right? If I right click, it's going to appear the Windows context menu, and it gives you a set of options, a set of menu options that you can choose from that performs some kind of action. So let's say, for example, if I want to open, Visual Studio Code with this desktop, right? I can do that. If I want to open the display settings, I can do it as well. Another example is, let's say, for example, if we go into our web browser, if I go to any single web page, I can go ahead and I can right click and it will show me a custom, or not really a custom, but the default context menu that the browser provides for us. Now, if we go to the Discord application, we can see over here that if I were to right click any component, let's say if I right click a message, it's going to open up a custom context menu. Okay, so and it gives us a bunch of options. We can create threads, we can mark the message as unread, we can copy the message link, and a bunch of different stuff. Okay, so typically it's just really a menu that just appears upon some kind of interaction with the application, right? So it could be when you right click, it could be when you hit enter, when you hit space bar, it could be really anything. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create a custom context menu. So I'm gonna make it so that when we right click a component, it's going to show our own custom menu. So that way we don't have to have the default browser's context menu. We can have our own. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and set up a quick React project with TypeScript, and we're going to install styled components, and then we'll jump right into the actual implementation. The first thing I'm going to do is just set up a quick React project. So you can skip this step if you already have one already. But like I said, I'm going to do this all from scratch. So I'm just going to go ahead and type yarn create React app, and then I'm going to call this context menu React, and I'm going to set the template to TypeScript. Like I said, if you have one already, you can go ahead and skip the step. If you don't want to use yarn and you want to use npx create React app, you can also do that as well. So I'm going to come back to you all when this is done. All right, so the context menu React project is set up already. I'm just going to go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code, but before I do that, I'm going to add one more dependency, styled components. And I'm just going to also install one more, which is just the types for styled components. All right, cool. So now that we have all of our dependencies installed, what we're going to do is we're going to go inside the source folder. I'm not going to go through every single file, obviously, because it's implied that the audience already knows React already. So make sure you know React, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove some of the default styles, the default boilerplate that they give us. And I'm going to go inside the index.css file. And I'm just going to remove some of these styles as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and set... We're not going to really style this too much, but I just want to set some default CSS just for now. And I'm going to set the font family to be DM Sans, and then the text color should be a white color. And that's pretty much all the CSS that we'll really be working with inside the index.css file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to get some mock data, because what we're going to do is we're going to basically render a list of components, okay? And for each component, we want to make it so that the user can right-click that component, kind of like how on Discord, when you scroll up the messages, you can right-click each message. We're going to pretty much do something like that, right? I want to show you all how to create an actual realistic example, instead of just showing you how to right-click the page and then, just display a custom context menu. So we're going to create some mock data. We're going to go ahead and render that mock data with a React component. And we're going to make it so that when we right-click on each one of that component, it's going to show the context menu. So what I'll do is I'll create a new folder called, actually, I'll do this. Let me go ahead and just create a new folder called mocks, and we're going to go ahead and create a file called messages.ts. And I already have some mock data already, so I just saved this in a notepad. I'm just going to paste that in here, but this could be realistically any mock data you want. I don't want to waste too much time on setting this up. So we have some mock data. This is just an array of messages. Okay, we have an ID, content, and an author object for each one of them. Okay, pretty straightforward. Next, we're going to create a folder called components, and we're going to create a message.tsx component. So we're going to go ahead and create a message component real quick. But what we're going to do is we're also going to create a styled component. And this is the reason why we installed styled components, because I do want to at least style the messages just a little bit nicely. So we'll do that as well. So I'll create a custom styled component. So what I'll do is I'll call this message styles. So we'll go ahead and reference style.div, provide a set of backticks, because really this is just going to be a div. And I'm going to go ahead and provide some basic CSS styles. So I'm going to go ahead and first set up a simple border. So this will just be a simple light color. I'm going to go ahead and set up a border radius of 4 pixels. I'll set up some padding as well. Box sizing, border box. I'll set some margin on the top and bottom. We'll do 5 pixels top and bottom, left and right 0. And I think that's really all we really need to worry about. So what I'll do next is I'll go inside the message component, and I'll go ahead and just return message styles. Okay, and we're going to obviously need to populate this div with data. So in order for us to do that, we're obviously going to need to pass in a prop to this message component. Okay, so what prop are we going to pass in? Well, we're going to need to pass in a message object. Okay, so you can pretend like this this messages array is fetched from some API. Okay, and then we're going to have to dynamically render all of our data. So we're going to go inside the app.tsx file, and we're going to go ahead and render a list of messages. Before I do that, let me go ahead and actually start up the application so we can actually see all of our results. Can't believe I didn't do that. That should have been the very first thing I did. Okay, so I have the application up and running. So let me go into the app.tsx file. I'm going to go ahead and import messages. We're going to call it .map. And for each message object, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and render a message component. Okay, right now the message component doesn't take in anything, but I'm just going to do hello world inside message styles. So you can at least see that it's being rendered properly. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and need to pass in a prop to this message component. So it's going to look something like message equals M. Right now this is obviously not going to work because the component is not type annotated to take in a prop, but we'll fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a custom prop called props, call whatever you want. And what I'll do is I'm just going to go into the messages.ts mock file, and I'm just going to go ahead and just type annotate the message prop to literally whatever we're seeing in here. So ID is set to a number, content is a string. What's going on here? Why is this not? Oh, whoops. It's not const props, it's type props. Sorry about that. Okay, author, username, string. Obviously, in a real application, what you should do is you should take this object, create a custom type, like, type message prop, something like this, right? Paste that there, and then pass the message prop like that. But obviously, I'm just demonstrating this whole thing, so I'm not gonna, I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible. But I would encourage you to do that and put the props inside like a different file. Okay, you can put it in the same file too, but it's totally up to you. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead, we're going to take in a props parameter and type annotate that as props, okay? And that error should go away, okay? Because now we are actually expecting a message to be passed in. If I remove this, it's going to give us an error, okay? Because it's going to say it's missing props. It's missing the message prop, okay? Now inside the message.tsx file, I'm just going to destructure the message property from that props object, okay? And what I'll do is I'll just render message.content. I'll just interpolate it like that. So now you're going to see that we have our messages being rendered out. Pretty straightforward. So we haven't even gotten to the actual context menu stuff yet. So right now, if I right-click everything, if I right-click every message, it's going to show the browser's context menu. But we don't want that. We want our own context menu. So what we're going to do is for this message styles component, we're going to go ahead and register the on context menu event listener. This is going to take in a function, and that function is going to take in the event object. I'm going to just show you what happens now if we open up the context menu. Okay, so let me go ahead and open up my logs. So if I right click, you're going to see on the right hand side it logs context menu open every single time I right click on the component. If I were to right click outside of the message component, right, notice how context menu open is not being logged. Just whoops, what's going on here? Notice how it's not being logged. Even if I go in between, it's not going to log it as well. It has to be on the actual component itself, right? Because we're registering the listener on the component, which is what exactly we need to do. So it's still displaying the default context menu, okay? So how do we actually get rid of that? Well, if we actually call e.preventDefault, e is the event object, right? So event.preventDefault. This will prevent the default behavior of the browser, and the default behavior is literally just going to open up the context menu. You're going to see that I am actually right-clicking, and you can tell because the console is still logging context menu open. But because we called event.preventDefault, it's not going to actually open up the context menu. Okay, and that's exactly what we want, because we want to prevent the browser's default context menu from opening up, and we're going to open up our own custom one. So now how do we actually do that? Well, first we actually need to create our custom context menu. So we're going to create a custom style for that. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this. I don't want to create another file, so I'll just go ahead and do const context menu, and I'll just make this a div. Okay, and I'll add some styling for this. So what we'll do is I'll go ahead and copy the border radius. For the padding, I'll set the padding to 10 pixels. The box sizing will be border box, no margin at all. Okay, and let me just actually do this. I'm going to go ahead and set the position property to absolute. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to essentially render the context menu wherever our cursor is. So if my cursor is right over here and I'm right clicking here, that's where the context menu should be rendered. Okay, so in order for us to get that to work, we need to set position to absolute. Okay, I'm going to also just set the width to be, I'll do 200 pixels. And I'm going to go ahead and set a background color. Let me set this to a dark color for now, and we'll adjust it if we need to. Okay, so right now, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that, well, first let me do this. Let me actually, we're going to have to do this anyway, so let me actually just copy this. I'm going to use a React fragment, and I'm going to go ahead and render the context menu right down over here. I just want to see what it looks like right now. Okay, so you can see that we have 4 context menus right over here. Okay, now this is actually, you know what, let me actually do this instead. I actually am going to do this because I actually don't want 4 context menus being rendered. I only actually want one. And the reason why it's rendering it 4 times is because um, you can see right over here, there's a total of 4 elements in our messages array. And because we are calling .map, we are pretty much rendering 4 messages total. So it's going to render 4 context menus, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a message. I'm going to create a messages container. Let me just call this message container. Okay. And what we're essentially going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this message container. And this is where we're going to actually handle the logic of rendering the messages. So let me go ahead, import messages, import message, and we'll go ahead and render message container right over here. And actually, just for good practice, I'm actually not going to import messages from here. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to take the props here. This is actually supposed to be an array of messages. Okay. Like that. So the reason why I'm doing this is because it's not good practice to just, it's better practice to fetch the data, pass it into the component that you want to have it, that you want to take care of rendering it out. So we can pretend like we are fetching the data in the app component, and then we're going to pass it down like that. Okay, like this. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and take this type over here. Let me do this real quick. I know we're doing a little bit of refactoring, but I really want to make this look nice and presentable because I am going to put this on GitHub for you all to have. So I do want to at least make this presentable. So let me just create a custom type called message type. Yeah, I really want to make this presentable. So, okay. So we're going to create a custom message type, like I mentioned earlier. And we're going to go ahead and... I should have done this from the beginning. Okay. But that's okay. So now I can go ahead and import message type everywhere and reuse this. So they're all the same types. So if I need to modify message type, I can just modify over here. Okay, so I don't have to modify everywhere else. Okay. And I'll also do one more thing, might as well. I'm going to create a file called styles.tsx. And I want to take all of my styled components and move it inside here. And we'll export that as well. Yeah, I should have done this from the very beginning. My apologies. Okay, there we go. So all we got to do is just import our styled components wherever we need it. Okay. So the reason why I'm refactoring this right now is because what we're going to do is instead of rendering 4 containers all at once, or not containers, 4 context menus, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and actually let the message container be responsible for rendering the context menu. So instead of doing it inside the message component, we're going to do it inside message container itself. So let me remove context menu. Let me remove this React fragment. Okay, and let me remove the context menu import up there. So what we're going to do is we're going to render the context menu down here. And you're going to see that we only have one context menu being rendered out. Okay, and you can see that it's actually right up, for some reason it's over there. But let me actually do this. Let me actually set the properties of top to 0 and left to 0. And that's going to go ahead and render on the top there. Okay, so essentially what we want to do is we want to make it so that this context menu will be visible whenever we right click any one of these message components. Okay, and it's going to show the actions. Okay, and it's going to know which message to operate on. So if I right click on I love Angular, it's going to know that that's the message that we are going to perform actions on if we were to click on some of the actions. Okay, so this is only going to at most render one context menu instead of just rendering 4 at the same time. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we need to actually make it so that instead of listening to the context menu event inside message styles, we're actually just going to do that. We're actually going to do that right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to take, let me just Control Z. I'm going to take this message component. I'm going to wrap this inside a div. And I'm going to copy this context menu event. And I'm going to paste that over there. Okay. So now, if I were to still right click, the context menu is still working. Or not the context menu, but the event is still working. Okay, but we just moved it up one layer. All right, so now what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead. Let me just go back to my app. Okay, so we need to first, let's do this. Let's make it so that we can actually conditionally render the context menu because right now it's just displayed over there. Okay, so when do we actually want to render a context menu? Well, we only want to render it whenever we are actually right-clicking on a message. Okay, and how do we know when we right-click on a message? Well, remember when we listen to the on context menu, this event is going to be emitted whenever we actually right-click on the component. So we're going to need some state. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable called show, set show. And this is just going to be a Boolean value. Okay, so based off of this Boolean value, it's going to determine whether or not we want to render the context menu or not. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this inside a pair of curly braces, and we'll go ahead and do show and context menu. So in order for the context menu to be rendered, show needs to be true. Currently it's false. Okay, by default it's false. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and inside the context menu function, let me zoom in a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, whenever we right click, we'll set show to true. And if I go ahead and right click now, you can see that the context menu appears up there. It's a little bit hard to see. So let me go ahead and modify the context menu just a little bit. I'll give it a lighter color. There you go. You can see a lot better. Awesome. Okay, so notice how let me refresh the page again. If I right click, the context menu pops up. We're also going to make it so that when we click anywhere else on the page, the context menu should also disappear. And we could do that by registering in event listener on the window. So what I'll do is actually, let me see. Let me do this. We're going to call the use effect hook. And what we're going to do, let me just pass an empty dependency array. I'm going to create a function called handle click. Okay. And what this handle click function is going to do is it's just going to go ahead and call set show and set the value of show to false. Okay. We're going to go ahead and reference window and call add event listener. And we're going to register a click event. And whenever we click on anywhere in the window or anywhere in the browser, like the document, it's going to call handle click. So you're going to see that if I right click, the menu pops up. If I click, it disappears. Right? Whoops. That was in between right there. Okay. Disappears. Disappears. Perfect. And we also need to return a function that will remove the event listener. This is good practice, so make sure you do this. So this will avoid any memory leaks. Okay. So when the component unmounts, it'll remove the event listener, which is what we want actually. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so we're not done yet, obviously. Let's do this. Let's actually make it so that when we right click, the actual context menu appears where we want it to appear, which is where our cursor is, right? Because right now it's always showing up at the top, and the reason why it's showing up there is because we have top and left set to 0. Okay, we actually are going to need to pass in some props to context menu, and the props are going to be the position of where our cursor is, where we clicked. Okay, so how do we actually figure out where we actually right clicked? Well, the event object actually gives us two properties. page X, page X and page Y. Right, you can see page X and page Y right over here. So we're just going to create some state, and we'll call this const points, set points. And this will literally just be an object where we can just go ahead and set the top and left properties. So these will just be numbers. So you can call them X and Y if you want to, but I'll just call them top and left. Okay. So they'll be numbers by default. We'll set it to 0. Okay. And what we'll do is we're going to first go into the context menu style component, and I'm just going to create a custom prop called context menu props. And it's just going to take in a top and left property, and we're going to pass this. We're going to type annotate our context menu style component like this. So style.div angle brackets context menu props. And then we can go ahead and actually reference those props very easily like this. So let me remove top and left. So we're going to go ahead and do $ parentheses. So this is going to allow us to actually pass in a function that is going to allow us to get the props. Okay, so this allows us to pretty much evaluate JavaScript, but essentially what we're going to do is we're going to just set top and left. So I'm actually going to go ahead and import the CSS function from style components, and this actually allows you to specify a body of CSS properties that you want to apply all at once, and you can actually do this conditionally if we want to. But let me just go ahead and get top and left. Okay. And now what I can do is I can just go ahead and do top. And I'm going to go ahead. So for top, this is actually going to be a little bit tricky. Actually, I'm going to actually just do this. I'm going to call this X and Y instead. This is actually going to be a lot easier for me to understand it. I'm just going to call this X and Y. And we'll pass this in as top and left. So I just console log page X and page Y real quick. And so what we're going to do essentially is we're going to go ahead and pass in for top. So top is going to basically be the points.y, and then left will be points.x. And it makes sense because if I go into the console, right, and if I were to right click right now, so right now, page X is being logged right now, and you can see page X is 365. If I go more to the left, you're going to see that the page X coordinate, right, the X coordinate changes drastically, right? It goes from 365 to 174. So as I move more towards the left, that number is going to get smaller. So page X should be passed in. The value of page X should be passed in for the left property, right? Okay, and likewise for points.y, that should be passed in for top, because that's how much from the top we should be. Hopefully that makes sense. So let me go back to styles.tsx. So for top, we'll do top px, left px. Okay, so whatever value is being passed in, because the values are numbers, so it's going to be passed in, and we're just going to add px at the end, okay, which is pixels. So now we just need to update the points state variable, so we'll just call set points. And for x, we just pass in e.pagex, right? And then for y, e.page y. Yeah, I think that should be fine. Yeah, let's test this out. So let's refresh. Right click, right click, right click, right click. Yep, it's working fine. The reason why this context menu is showing up is because we're clicking in between the margin. But if you want to make it so that you want to disable the context menu for the whole document, you can actually do that. Okay, but you can see right now when we right click, it's showing the context menu. Okay, cool. So the last thing that we'll do is we'll style up the context menu just a little bit more. Okay, because right now it doesn't really look too nice. Let's make it look a little bit nicer. So what we'll do is I'll add some box shadow real quick. And you can style it up however you want. It's totally up to you. Okay, but what I'm gonna do is, whoops, I'm gonna go ahead and add some stuff in this context menu because we haven't done that yet. Okay, so for context menu, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and actually, for now, I'm gonna go ahead and add an unordered list, and I'm just gonna add a bunch of list items in here. So this could be something like, delete message, pin message. What else is there? What other options is there that we can do? Let me see. Edit message, right? And you're gonna see when I right click now, it's gonna show all of the options there. Let's style that up just a little bit more, and then we'll conclude the tutorial because the rest is just styling, really. Okay. So let me go ahead and reference the unordered list. So I'm going to go inside the context menu, okay? And I'm just going to reference the unordered list. We'll get rid of the margin. Get rid of the padding for now. We're going to set box sizing to border box. And I'm going to set the list style type to be none. Okay. I will set some padding, actually. I think 10 pixels should be okay. And what I will do is I will actually do this. So I will get rid of the padding from the context menu. The padding will come from the unordered list, which will set. I'm actually going to do 18 pixels instead. Okay. And then we'll reference the unordered list and we'll target the list item. And what I'll do is I'll set the padding to be 10 pixels. I think that's a lot better. I'll do 10 pixels top and bottom, and I want to have it slightly a lot smaller from the left and right. Actually, top and bottom will be 8 pixels. I think that's better. Okay, and last but not least, we'll make it so that when we hover over it, we'll set a cursor to pointer, and the background color will also change as well. We'll change it to a lighter color to indicate that the user is hovering over it. Okay. Actually, I don't really like the padding for this. Let me do this. Let me actually set the padding for the unordered list to be 10 pixels. And I'll set more padding for the list item. I'll do maybe 18 pixels. Yeah, so 18 pixels top and bottom, 12 pixels left and right. Border radius 4 pixels. Okay, and there we go. So the nice thing is if I click on this, it's going to get rid of the context menu, which is good. Okay. Yeah, not too bad, honestly. I like it. So hopefully this makes sense. Obviously, I'm gonna let you all customize this however you want. You can add emojis, you can add icons, you can do whatever you want. Okay. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in my next episode. Peace out.